Hello everybody! So here is Black Angel and I'm here with a kind of weird video. It's not going to happen very often on my channel, but I thought that this way would be the best way to deliver this concept. The main reason why I'm doing this is that whenever I upload a video, I see there that there's comments of people that I blocked. And since I know roughly what they're talking about, even if I don't see it, I would like to give you guys, the others that are actually following, something to make you stronger in terms of why you're listening to me and why you consider me reliable. The first thing that I want to tell you, and I ask you to excuse me for this face that I'm showing, this page that I'm showing in Italian that says incognito browsing. But anyway, what I'm trying to do here is show you how to learn the theory. Now, all of you, or most of you, are determined to think that they are one type or another. That's a problem. That's not a good thing. It's actually, from some perspective, a bad thing. And here's why. Some of you are sure of who they are and haven't found their type, or they're sure of who they are and they found their type and they will find out that they don't need to change it. Some other instead will have problems of the sort that they're not sure of who they are, or they are and they didn't find their type. So anyway, here is how learning happens, especially when it comes to psychology. We learn theory. And this theory is not based on something coming from another planet that nobody ever saw, that was seen in the mind of someone like a sci-fi book or something like that. No, we're talking about the reality that you have in front of you. So whatever is written on Wikisation or on whatever other website to be true needs to be found in the real world. And it is written there because people that studied this stuff decided to describe a specific thing that they were seeing in the real world and that they decided to call a specific way. This is what we're doing when we're learning the theory. So here's what happens. A lot of people pick a type and want the theory to apply according to the type that they want to be. That's not how it works. Because if you do that, what is going to happen is going to be that you take the theory and you want it to mean whatever the hell you want it to mean, and you're not going to understand a word of what it exactly was meant and what is exactly being described, and you're going to apply it randomly, and then nothing is going to make sense anymore. So that's when people start throwing the arms in the air and go like, oh, it's pseudoscience, it doesn't make sense. First thing, pseudoscience makes a lot of sense, especially in psychology. So pseudoscientific studies in psychology are more important than scientific studies, especially because scientific studies only tell you what something is not, but they cannot define what something is. And if you know a little bit about how science works, that's exactly what science does. Science only tells you it cannot be that specific thing that doesn't make sense. So it must be something else, but it doesn't tell you what this else actually is. From that moment on, it's all interpretations. So that's why the pseudoscientific method instead in psychology is more important and more valid, because it actually looks at what the hell is going on in front of the person that is looking at the thing, and there is an attempt to describe this thing in the most objective way possible. Obviously, there will be some bias, but what we're trying to do in psychology is to overcome the bias or use the bias to actually understand the reality at hand. This is what happens with psychoanalysis. Psychology is based on the studies of Freud that started everything with psychoanalysis. It actually started a lot earlier with a guy that was, I don't remember the name exactly, but anyway, it was a lot earlier, but it was more a study of perception and how the brain works. And from that moment on, things developed and psychoanalysis kicked in. And that's where most conclusions come from. Psychoanalysis belongs to pseudoscientific methods exactly because it's the observation of a specific case of one individual. So, this said, this is the way that the theory is actually developed. So what we need to do and what should be done instead is the thing that you've seen me do if you've been following me for years over time. So I used to pick a function and see the things that this function seemed to have in common with me. So I started analyzing every passage and every description that I could find about that function, went through every description slowly, understood exactly what was being said, also checking the originals if it was a translation, trying to get help, figuring out what was meant behind the passage that I was reading. And I was trying to figure out what exactly that person there was seeing. Once I saw that, I thought I could apply that thing to myself. But it's not that easy. In fact, shortly after, I used to start seeing in people around me exactly the kind of behavior that I have been analyzing and seeing in the passages that I had been studying. So from that moment on, it was clear to me that I wasn't making that kind of use of that function. So I had to exclude that type because I was seeing that type right in front of me doing exactly those things that were written in the passages that I had been studying. That's how I got to my type. I slowly but persistently figured out what my behavior looked like and simultaneously studied the functions to figure out how the functions work and what the theory actually looks like. That's why some of you sometimes post me and write me, "Oh my God, you understand this type better than anybody else." Because I do. Because I actually spent time trying to understand that type instead of attaching to it my personal views of what that type is. And to prove this thing, I want to go through introverted ethics. And I'm going to use introverted ethics exactly because I am accused of judging these people and mistreating them, describing them as fucking monsters that nobody wants to next to them because I'm a fucktard that doesn't know what she talks about. So in this sense, I want you guys to understand and see why this is all bullshit. So I'm showing you how introverted ethic works, and I'm going to use Dickinson as a description for the simple reason that it's the closest thing to what Carl Jung actually meant, and it is extremely precise in terms of what is what is the reality out there. I have seen these behaviors in the real world out there. I have interviewed the people that displayed these behaviors and asked them how they lived that thing and if they viewed themselves in that thing, just to find out that they actually did. So here is introverted ethics on Dickinson. So this is quite long because it goes in depth into the description, as you can see, of each and every type that uses the function as a valid function. So here we have INFPs in MBTI and ISFPs. Yeah, you see a J because Socionics makes a different description. As you can see, it's a very small J. It's not a capital J as we are used to in MBTI. But these are FI dominants. FI is a leading function, as you can see, and it's INFP and ISFP. This is the ISFP and this is the INFP. Then we have FI as an auxiliary function that is called creative, so ESFPs and ENFPs. Then we have FI as a tertiary function that is called in Socionics activating, and here we have ISTJs and INTJs. The little p again is because sensing and intuiting are considered in Socionics perceptive, and thinking and feeling are considered instead rational functions, hence judging functions. So it's a different thing from what you would find in MBTI normally. Then we have Fi as a last function, as the inferior function in ESTJs and ENTJs. So here is the short description of every type and how it displays subconsciously, for example, in ENTPs and ESTPs, the ILE and the SLE, and so on. But what matters to us is the passage here, the description and the Wikisource description, this that I now highlighted in blue. So what is it said? It says, this white introverted ethics. This is the subjective relationship between two carriers of potential or kinetic energy that shows the level of attraction or repulsion between one object or subject and another object or subject. What the hell does this thing mean? So it means that there are movements, kinetic energy, between objects or subjects. So if you see your friend with another friend, you will see that there is some sort of relationship between them. So this kind of movement that is abstract, that shows the relationship between these two people, is based on attraction and repulsion. So what introverted feeling does is show you or help you see the attraction or repulsion between two people or two objects. Thanks to this element, I am element is normally the way that we call functions in socionics. Thanks to this element, a person feels which objects attract him and which repel him. So when we're using a function in the dominant position, we are basing our whole existence on the principles that are at the basis of that function. So this means that introverted feeling dominant types are people that base their lives on their feelings of objects that attract him and objects that repel him. So you might say that this perceptual element conveys information about objects' need or lack of need of each other, and about the presence or absence of mutual or one-way needs. This is why in relationship it often happens that people tell each other, I need you. It's something that is based on a very abstract sense of attraction. So I'm attracted to you. I need you. So I need to have you in my life because you are a positive addition to my life. That's basically what it means. So such an individual perceives about this facet perceives information about this facet of objective reality. The individual perceives as a need of certain. Okay, I cannot read that. I'm sorry, but basically that's what I just said about how these people live. So this individual perceives information about this part of reality and the need of one object to satisfy that wish or desire, or that psychological or spiritual desire. So long story short, I would pass to the last passage of this paragraph here, this passage here, that says, when this perceptual element is in the leading position, the individual possesses the innate ability to perceive and evaluate wishes and desires, both his own and others. He always knows who wants what from whom. He is able to set his awareness of subjective reality and his wishes in opposition to those of others. And he has the ability to mold and perfect both his own and others' wishes. He possesses both the ability to provide himself with necessary relationships with others and confidence in his capacity to influence other people. His correct perception of human needs allows him to avoid risky collisions when satisfying his own needs. This engenders the ability to manipulate people's attachments and the ability and desire to influence people's ethical feelings and brings these feelings closer to societal ideas. So if you think about it, what I said about introverted feeling in my past videos, in my recent videos, is, long story short, what is written in here. So now I would want to do another thing, and I would want to proceed with something different. I'm going to go on the ISFP profile, for example, here. Ethical Sensing Intro Team, and I'm going to pick Stratiskaya's descriptions. As you can see, there's a list of people that studied this stuff. It's not random factor that nobody knows what the hell they were doing. They actually say their names, and you can find books they wrote about this stuff. Gulenko is the most active. He's an INTP, or he self-types anyway as an INTP. And I think I agree with that because of the way he thinks. And he's the most active and the most expansive in terms, in terms of finding new ideas, new theories, new ways to analyze the theory. He actually created a model himself of how to locate the functions. So he's extremely creative in theoretical terms. Then we have Filatova. She's the most prone to indicate physical traits. So if you're interested in what the physical characteristics and the physical traits of a type might be, Filatova is the kind of descriptor you're looking for. I don't remember if she's an INFP or something like that, but I think she goes in that direction. Anyway, what I want to show you is Stratiskaya's descriptions. Because Stratiskaya is an ISFP. And as an ISFP, she describes her own type. And I think she does a hell of a good job as an ISFP describing her own type. Now, this is a warning. A lot of people have difficulties reading Stratiskaya because when she describes ENTPs, INTPs, ESFJs, and ISFJs, she has a tendency to be a little bit harsh in the description. And she tends to view things from a very extremely biased perspective. Now, you can use that actually to your advantage, knowing that she tends to be extremely biased against those types. So you can take what she says and actually figure out why someone of her type would see things that way and what it is that is actually done by the other person. She knows what they do, but she doesn't know what is behind that facade that she is actually literally judging. So let's see some things about Stratiskaya's description of the first function, introverted feeling. So the main program of a Drazer that is an ISFP is to reveal all the existing negative ethical qualities and tendency and to fight for their removal, exclusion, and elimination to the point of their complete eradication. So she's not going sweet about it. She says everything that has any negative ethical quality is going to be fought and fought to death by an ISFP, by introverted feeling dominant sensors. That's because it is extremely important to them to have their view of right and wrong applied in society. So moving on, in light of this, what constitutes acceptable relations for ESI, so for the ISFP, are relations in which he sees the least troubles for himself, his close one, and his community. So anything that to him is going to threaten the community is going to be eradicated. They're not sweet about it. So that kind of person that you see in society that starts yelling in your face that you are ill-bred, that you shouldn't behave that way, that's wrong, that you should wash your mouth with I don't know, soap, and that you shouldn't behave that way, and they're going to insist and be extremely insisting about it with a very upfront attitude. That thing there is normally described as an ESFJ, but that's actually an ISFP, and this is an ISFP claiming that. So moving on, possibly it is for this reason that all of ISFP's commandments and directives are so categorical and state primarily and precisely what a person should not do. That's what I just said. So I think I will stop here about this type, and I want to show you instead what Stradiskaya says about INFPs. So this is the square where you find all types, and the INFP in Socionics is called an EII. So let's open up and let's go see what Stradiskaya says about the EII. The EII attempts to create the most harmonious, most humane, in his opinion, form of ethical relations, which would exclude the suppression of one personality by another, conflicts, discord, lack of understanding, and mutual distrust. Poor peace is better than a good quarrel. This is the basic form of his ethical strategy. So they're basically conflict avoidant types that decide themselves what is right and what is wrong. So again, they attempt to create the most harmonious, most humane, in his opinion, form of ethical relations. This excludes any type that causes ruckus, or that raises their voice, or that is going to attack others for specific traits that they have. Like, for example, an ESFP might do. An ESFP might walk in the face of an INFP and go like, you should fucking work until you drop that. And the INFP is not going to be very happy about that. And they're going to simply exclude this person. They're not like the ISFP that tells you things in the face and that tries to lecture you about why you shouldn't behave that way. They are the type that shuts the fuck up about it, doesn't tell you any fucking thing, but you're never gonna meet them again. So you like it? Good for you. You don't like it, it's not my fault. Anyway, EII's entire life consists of a search for means and possibilities to realize his idealistic system of relations. Moreover, his own behavior usually serves as a positive example of it. The outcome of such orientation is heightened introspection and self-analysis, self-critical approach, and constant ethical self-improvement that is characteristic of people of this type. While he is highly demanding of himself, the EII is usually very tolerant of weaknesses of other people. Now, this is what I said in my video, basically. If you go look for my NFP video, it's an old video, you're going to see exactly how I describe this thing. They live, like the INTP in this sense, in a very abstract mental world of what the world should be like. And their idea of what the world should be like is based on their ideal of what is right and what is wrong. So from there on, what they're going to try to do is to apply this ideal to themselves. So they have the potential of being that thing. So they want to be that thing that they consider the best possible way to be. And from that moment on, they're going to try to mold themselves into this thing. Now, this is called the way that Stradiskaya described it is heightened introspection and self-analysis, self-critical approach, and constant ethical self-improvement. The way you should see it is that these people sit there, analyze their own behavior. Like, for example, they realize that they are judging someone's behavior as wrong. They think that that thing there is a bad thing to do and that they should not do that thing. So what happens, I think it's written here, we're seeing that they want to eradicate that thing. They don't want any type to be judged by any other type. So when they realize that they're judging, they try to destroy that judgment from themselves. So self-critical approach and constant ethical self-improvement. It's not spiritual self-improvement, it's ethical self-improvement. They're going to try to change themselves into that thing that they wish they were. So that's why I said in my video that they're not very honest with themselves about who they are, because they are in the constant attempt to change that thing. So this is basically where I get most of my descriptions, but it's not the only places. One place that I like to check a lot is Galenko's descriptions, because he's extremely objective. And one thing that I enjoy looking at is from an EII, from an INFP, one cannot demand and expect enterprising spirit and initiative in production. They're not productive types. Decisive, resolute behavior in emergency situations. They basically are those guys that blank and do not know what to do when it is an emergency situation. High state of mobilization. They stop in the middle of the road and they do not move from there. They're like a traffic light. You don't move them from where they are. Quick completion of work. That's quite literal, because the extroverted intuition types are said to not realize when they're standing in the middle of a door, like on the doorway, and blocking everybody else from passing. They do not have that kind of attention. That's what is meant there. Aside from mobilization, meaning of doing a lot of stuff. Quick completion of work that doesn't inspire much interest in her. They're not going to to be particularly quick in finishing works that they're not interested in. But this is something that they actually have in common with a lot of other types. And organizational skills. They cannot organize themselves. I enjoy looking at this because it is quite easy to spot those characteristics in people. And I want to show you again the ISFP and what they cannot be expected from them, which is an always positive attitude towards life. They tend to have a very negative attitude towards life. Indifferent attitude towards activities and actions she considers unethical. So they're not going to be indifferent towards that stuff. They're going to call that out. Ability to quickly change his valuations and beliefs. They're going to be stuck in their beliefs and they're not going to move from there. They're extremely stubborn. Receptiveness to extraordinary proposals. So they are in conflict with the ENTP. So anything new out of the blue, never tested, is going to be rejected by the ISFP. So as you can see, the ISFP is not exactly the fluffy teddy bear you all believe to be. You all believe them to be, but it's actually something way more tough and aggressive. That's what extroverted sensing types are: aggressive. And let's see in what way they are aggressive, just to make parenthesis, since this is not specifically about introverted feeling, but it's rather extensive. So where is the, okay, here, extroverted sensing. When this element is in the leading position, the individual possesses exceptional personal force, will. He is a born organizer of anything. He has the ability to mobilize people to achieve a goal and is able to make use of and manage animate and inanimate objects. Is able to work with things and reproduce almost any objects based on available samples. This is a reflection of his ability to organize material. These people are known for their striving to materialize their will, energy, and power, and for their desire to impose their own will on others. I want to show another thing, and we're going this way. Information elements. Here you should have a very short description of every function, which says introverted feeling is internal harmony, resonance or dissonance of personal sentiments, sympathy, pity, compassion, support, condemnation, judgment, positive and negative emotional space. Whereas extroverted sensing is sensing of immediate and static qualities of objects, sensing of immediate reality, external appearance, texture, form, static object, impact, direct physical affect, span, extent, scope. More to it. sensing reality, sensing of reality, factual perception of reality. Everything around you gets registered, no matter if you can touch it or it's way off in the distance. A mobilized state, exerting force on objects and people with the goal of moving them around in space. In extroverted sensing perception, a person or object can be influenced only in space. Whereas introverted feeling is an analytical state of mind, analysis of personal feelings and stances, harmony or disharmony of personal values and sentiments, endearment, closeness, moral satisfaction, emotional sensitivity, deep personal conviction that may produce moral firmness and resolve. Now, since introverted feeling is so close to a lot of things that are said about introverted intuition, I would like to open a parenthesis about how introverted intuition is described instead on Wikisession. So, development over time, historicity, cause and effect, consequences, repetition, archetypal themes and examples, looking for causes in history or the past, future forecasting of event dynamics, rhythm, delay or act now, past turned imagination. This is introverted intuition. And I opened it here. When this element is in leading position, the individual possesses innate strategic abilities and is able to choose the most optimal moments for different activities. When to give battle if necessary and when to avoid battle, when that would be more appropriate. Interaction in time might be interpreted as the ability to avoid collision with objects and hence avoid objects' reflection within oneself. So such an individual, moving on upwards, such an individual perceives information from without as feelings about the future, past, and present. For example, a sense of hurriedness, calmness, heatedness, a sense of timeliness or prematureness, a sense of proper or improper life rhythm, a sense of impending danger or safety, anticipation, fear of being late, a sense of seeing the future, anxiety about what lies ahead, and so forth. At any given moment of one's life, one has such a sense of time. They are this thing. So whenever we are talking about introverted intuitive introspection, we're talking about figuring out the causes leading to specific outcome. So that's the psychological introspection by excellence, looking at what caused the current situation and how that thing can be changed so that the current situation doesn't display the same way as it was before. This is introverted intuition. So that's the difference between an INFP's introspection and an INFJ's introspection. The INFP takes their behaviors and judges them, attempting to change them. Whereas the INFJ takes their own behavior, sees what effect they had, and tries to, well, actually, they take the effect of their behavior and try to change what is psychologically in their mind that caused their behavior. They go at the origin of the problem. So I think I will close this here because I made a quite long video. I hope it helped you see a little bit how to study and how to actually figure out what types actually look like. And I will talk to you soon. Goodbye.